On November 24, 1971, a middle-aged man boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 in Portland, heading to Seattle. Dressed in a thick suit and carrying a small briefcase, he appeared to be just another ordinary passenger. Nothing about him hinted that this short flight would soon transform into one of the most mysterious and thrilling incidents in American aviation history. About 30 minutes after takeoff, the man uttered unexpected words. He handed the flight attendant a strange note. "I have a bomb." It was the first moment of tension on board the flight. It took only a few moments for the flight attendant to realize the seriousness of the situation. He reassured her in a calm voice, but the cold, calculating gaze of the man sitting behind her confirmed that this was a real threat. "If my demands are not met, the consequences will be severe." Those were the words he spoke, but the way he said them made them sound more like a promise than a threat. He wasn't bluffing. The small black bag he carried was not just full, it contained a real bomb. Panic set in as the man demanded $200,000 in cash for parachutes and for cans of fuel. In that moment, it became clear that the bomb was not a bluff. When he opened his bag to reveal a handheld bomb that looked real, the hearts of everyone on board, passengers and flight attendants alike, raced with fear. It was obvious that the man was fully aware of what he was doing. In those tense moments, Cooper took command, saying that he would detonate the bomb if his demands weren't met. The authorities had no choice but to act swiftly. The ransom had to be gathered, and his demands executed as quickly as possible. As the situation escalated, Cooper issued clear instructions. He wanted $200,000, the 4 parachutes he requested, and the 4 cans of fuel. It seemed like the ransom was just the beginning. Now, Flight 305 was completely under the control of this unknown man. But there was one question on everyone's mind. What was he planning to do after getting what he wanted? At that moment, no one had an answer. Local authorities were on high alert, and negotiations were unfolding under extreme pressure. The plane headed to Seattle after an emergency landing was decided. Police, along with military teams, awaited Cooper's demands. Tension was thick in the air. The passengers were trapped in their seats, their minds racing with questions. But everyone knew that the crucial moment was fast approaching. Cooper watched them all quietly. But would this end when the plane touched down, or was something else about to unfold? Upon arrival in Seattle, the ransom was delivered. Authorities had prepared the money he demanded, along with the parachutes and fuel. The instructions were followed carefully, but the tension continued to build among everyone on board. It was as though everyone knew that once the ransom was handed over, there would be another critical moment. The question hung in the air. Would Cooper leave the plane safely, or did his plan involve more than just escape? After receiving everything he had asked for, the plane was ready to take off again. The situation felt surreal. The plane, which had been under the control of a hijacker, was now ascending once more into the dark sky, following the path Cooper had set. Although the passengers knew they were no longer in immediate danger, fear still gripped them. In the calm air, everyone wondered, was this the beginning of the end, or the start of a new phase in this dangerous adventure? As the plane soared through the sky, Cooper remained in control. He ordered the pilot to lower the altitude and fly at a low elevation. The plane was now on an unconventional course, and the pilot had no choice but to follow Cooper's instructions. Despite desperate attempts to regain control, the authorities had no option but to let the plane stay airborne until Cooper's entire plan had been executed. With each passing second, the weight of the moment grew heavier. At that moment, the passengers were filled with intense fear. They knew their plane was under the control of a stranger, and their lives could be in danger at any moment. But Cooper remained calm, seemingly at ease with the situation. It was as if he had planned this day for years. The passengers, watching his every move, sat in tense silence, but deep down, they knew the time had come to find out what would happen next. Then, in a moment no one expected, Cooper made his move. In the dead of night, in the black sky, Cooper approached the plane's rear exit. Without hesitation, he jumped out of the plane, using one of the parachutes he had requested. As the plane continued its journey, Cooper disappeared into the darkness. This was the pivotal moment that changed the entire course of the story. Would he survive? Where would he land? These questions flooded the minds of both investigators and passengers. Authorities began an extensive search in the dark area where Cooper was believed to have landed. Investigations were ramped up in the dense forests surrounding the area. Planes flew overhead, and ground teams moved through the trees, but Cooper had vanished without a trace. As time passed, the investigation uncovered new details about where he had jumped, but there was no solid evidence of his whereabouts. Days and weeks passed, and the case continued to take on larger dimensions. The FBI was on high alert, working feverishly to find any clues that could lead them to Cooper. Suspects were everywhere, but there was no concrete evidence linking anyone to him. However, every new theory brought a new idea, yet the truth remained Elusa Cooper was still hiding in the shadows. After 9 years, in 1980, a surprising breakthrough occurred. $5,800 of Cooper's ransom money was found along the Columbia River. The bills were part of the money Cooper had received, reigniting hopes of finding him. However, finding the money was only the beginning of a new mystery. Did Cooper leave this money on purpose? Was he living nearby? Investigations continued for years, with new theories emerging about Cooper's whereabouts. Rumors spread, some suggesting he had left the country, while others indicated that Cooper had disappeared completely. But without conclusive evidence, the case remained open. Every time new leads emerged, the investigation was reinvigorated, but the shadow of mystery never lifted. In 2016, the FBI officially announced the closure of the investigation into the D.B. Cooper case. They had failed to identify him and had found no evidence leading to his whereabouts. Despite the case's closure, questions remained. Was Cooper a professional escape artist, or just an ordinary adventurer who decided to hide his identity? He vanished into the dark, leaving behind one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. Source of the case: the D.B. Cooper hijacking case took place in the United States, specifically in Washington State. In 1971, the investigation was officially closed in 2016 after the FBI was unable to identify the perpetrator or locate his whereabouts. Despite numerous attempts to investigate new evidence, the case remains one of the greatest mysteries in the history of American crime.